Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Lacey Evans has been repackaged again. I am Luke Owen, DAD, your Jam That Champion, and I can now officially say, your Quizzlemania champion.
Just dripping with gold.
Oh, I'm like the Roman Reigns of WrestleTalk, got all the gold on me. I'm my own bloodline.
You should get everyone to acknowledge you at the beginning of every podcast.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Acknowledge me,
Am I
everyone.
just feeding the ego? I don't know.
Are you my Sami Zayn in all
Yeah,
this? Just
yeah.
to hype me up. And of course, I'm joined by the voice of British wrestling, Dave Bradshaw. Dave, welcome to the
Hello.
SmackDown podcast.
And Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas.
I
yes.
feel a bit under. You've worn a Christmassy cardigan here.
Got my Christmas cardigan.
And I have not. But
Well, I mean, you even said to me before we came in here, you haven't watched a single Christmas movie
no,
yet.
it's Christmas Eve though. Christmas Eve morning as we're filming this, right? So I'm planning on going straight home after this. Got Home Alone 2 queued up, ready to go. Muppet Christmas Carol, and maybe I might do Love Actually if we got time.
I mean,
Let's see.
I was just on the phone with Ollie, and he said to me they were just about to watch Elf. And
Yeah.
then this evening, they're going to the cinema to watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Ooh.
So that's a nice little Christmas festive double
Cinemas
bill.
open on
Well, I mean, the
Christmas Eve?
Prince Charles Cinema is always open. I think that some
Okay.
cinemas might be open Christmas Day. I'm going to go home and watch Elf.
Yep.
I
You
think
know, I've never seen Elf.
you never saw
Embarrassing, isn't it?
Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe this is the year to rectify that.
I've got time.
You've got time on your
Time.
hands.
Yeah. I've got the whole day.
If not, do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to watch Elf, and I think we're also going to watch Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah. I mean, The Muppets is the best.
Yeah, it's the best Christmas movie ever made.
100%.
100%.
So, yeah.
No, there's no debate around that.
Yeah.
Although I would also say, because this has been a bit of a running gag on the show recently,
Mhm.
Home Alone is better than Home Alone 2.
No, it's not.
You're not
wrong.
one of those people.
is
are
wrong.
you?
Who's on your side? And who?
So, well, I mean, Dan Layton agrees
Yeah.
with you,
Good.
and everyone else agrees with
Well,
us.
Dan is a sensible man. Because Pigeon Lady is better than Shovel Man.
Yeah, no, but it's the same character. Like, the problem with
Yeah,
Home Alone
but-
2 is it's the same
And
movie,
it's New
but
York,
again.
and New York's like magical.
That's exactly what Dan said to me the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
day. He was like, yeah, but New York's magical, isn't it?
Yeah, rather than a massive house. What does his dad do? I know I'm not the only one to ask this.
Oh, I mean, it's clearly
Kevin's dad-
insurance or
Yeah,
something.
he's in the mafia. He must be.
It's either insurance or insurance fraud.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
let's talk about this episode of
Wrestling,
SmackDown.
yeah.
It shouldn't take long because this was a taped episode of SmackDown.
Oh, yeah.
Taped after last week's episode. So it was the usual filler episode of a WWE broadcast.
Yeah.
We had a gauntlet match.
It's the last episode before Christmas. It's
it's your last day of school.
yeah, it's
basically.
still like at least 5 weeks till the next premium event. There's not much.
Not much we need to
Yeah.
be doing. The Bloodline cut a promo. We had a bonkers little match. Like this was an episode that was full of festive cheer, and all the good guys won. There was just happiness all round, basically.
It did warm the cockles, didn't it?
It did, particularly that main event. However, I think one of the striking parts about this episode, certainly the most newsworthy part of the episode, is a video package right before the main event for Lacey Evans, who is getting what feels like her 6th character change since coming up to the main roster just a couple of years ago. Like, it was 2019, I think she was called up to the main roster.
Yeah.
Late 2018, she was part of that On Their Way. And that gimmick where she would just walk out on stage, then turn around and walk back.
Yeah.
What other gimmicks has she had? She was in the feud with Becky Lynch. Then she was Ric Flair's surrogate daughter in her
Yes.
feud with Charlotte Flair.
Yes.
And then she was pregnant, and it was insinuated it was Ric Flair's. And then everyone stopped doing it because everyone felt uncomfortable about it. She had the repackage after she came back from the pregnancy, where they wanted to position her as a babyface. And she cut these very good promos. She had these really interesting video packages on SmackDown, where she was talking about her real life struggles, her time in the army and everything. And they wanted to present her as the army vet that everyone cheers. But then she came out and cut heel promos. And then they dropped all of that, and she just went back to her old character for a bit. Then she was off. She's been off TV for a little while. Now she's back with a brand new character. And that brand new character is G.I. Jane, I guess. She is just army vet. I've been trained for this. I've got a particular set of skills. Almost like she basically cut a Taken promo. I suppose my question is this a repackage that will actually stick? And secondly to that, is it a repackaging that will actually help because nothing else has really gotten her over.
I do think there's quite a lot of repackaging going on, not just with Lacey Evans. Isn't it? I mean, he takes one at Austin Theory, for example, over on Raw, and what's happened with him. Like, we still feel very much like we're in the Triple H has inherited this company creatively. It's going to take me 6 months to get it where I want it to be, kind of
exactly.
Because there's a lot of this still. In Lacey Evans' case, I mean, it is ridiculous. Right?
Yeah,
you've listed out.
I suppose with Evans, it just sort of sticks out because she's had nothing but repackages.
So constant. Yeah. I mean, I like Taken. You know,
yeah.
We all like
Taken.
I like G.I. Jane.
Yeah, great film.
The package itself, I was like, okay. I mean, fine, but yeah, I think there's every reason to be skeptical, right?
It is a little bit, yeah. And I suppose the question I have sort of hanging over me is, not just will it stick? It's like, is this one going to work? And it's come at a really bad week for Evans as well, because she was in the headlines this week for some pretty controversial takes on her Instagram feed, where, in case anyone missed it, she put up an Instagram feed on her Instagram story. She reposted a video it's not from InfoWars, but it was filmed on the InfoWars set that said ADHD and autism didn't exist in the 1980s and is only just it's made up for now, and it's being done by processed foods and all this sort of stuff. And she got heavily criticized, I would argue correctly so.
Imagine that.
She got very criticized for the opinions that she shared. Everyone is welcome to their own opinions, of course, but sometimes there is science.
Yes, you're not entitled to your own facts.
Well, yes, absolutely. And she was very heavily criticized for it online, and to the point where she had to delete a series of posts that she had made about it. And it almost feels like, I think if I were WWE, I probably wouldn't have done it this week. I probably would have just... I mean, granted, maybe the news has died down enough. The 24-hour news cycle is always around to kind of keep things right. And Mandy Rose thing died down pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's enough time has passed since Wednesday. Yeah. or Thursday, where it was, for us to be like, yeah, okay, we can put her back on TV now.
Well, also, I mean, it's pre-taped. Right. They could have edited it out.
They edited it out, because I don't think this was played to the audience. Because I read the spoilers from the live arena last week, and this wasn't mentioned in that.
Oh, okay.
So this was put into added. This was added in. This was a conscious decision.
Well, yeah. In that case, I mean, they must have decided, right, that's
this is the week. To
either it doesn't matter, or that it doesn't matter enough to cancel whatever plans they had, or that actually maybe it's a good idea because people will then start talking about the character.
Could be
rather than
it's actually not. That's actually not. Yeah, any news is good news.
Yeah.
Even if it is sort of like, the backlash that she got for it. Maybe
because, then anyone who's talking about Lacey Evans on a podcast like us, is not, the whole conversation isn't about that. Half of it's about this new character. So
absolutely.
I mean, maybe it might be a smart way to
capitalize
to do
almost
that
on the news itself.
I don't know. I mean, if you're a long-time fan, do you remember the Truth Commission?
Oh yes,
yeah, the late 90s. Yeah, Recon and the Interrogator.
Don Callis' group with his amazing Survivor Series performance.
Yes, incredible.
Eliminated early and then joined commentary.
But this slightly dodgy military gimmick.
I mean, that is a group that went through. I mean, they were one thing, and then just became a different because the Jackal took over. I need to get rid of this commandant fella.
Yeah, so. I think there's a little bit of concern that it could go that way, but I think you would hope with Triple H, right, that if they're going to do an army type gimmick, that it will at least be based in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, of all people, I would put more faith into him than I would Vince, because Vince has always had this idea of he likes to present army vets.
We need characters.
We need
make movies, pal.
I mean, not even just that, but with Bobby Lashley, when he was turning him face, the first thing he did was army vets. He's an army vet. He's a man who loves the army. WWE themselves are a tribute to the troops.
Did you see the John Cena video package?
Well, absolutely,
this week? I mean, army, right?
Yeah, they love their military force because they protect us and this, that, and the other. They'll protect you guys, well, not us. I mean, I suppose they protect us as well.
You can protect yourself, Luke.
I mean, I don't need the American army to help me with my
Luke
wars.
lives in his own nuclear bunker.
I'm the Jam That champion and Quizzlemania champion.
Yeah, if Putin comes after you, how dare you, Vladimir? Do you know who I am?
I'm the Jam That champion. Yeah. Thank you very much. But he's always gone for that. And that was clearly his idea for Lacey Evans as well. We're going to bring her in as a babe, we'll bring her back as a babyface and focus on her army vet status. This feels like, however, they're focusing on her army status and her army background, but not being like, and she's a hero to the American people, the Sergeant Slaughter type thing before he became the Iraqi sympathizer. This feels more, I don't know if it's a heel or a face character. It felt slightly more heelish. It's slightly like it's going to pose her as an unstoppable force in the women's division. And on a SmackDown roster that's got Ronda Rousey, that feels like it's going to be very difficult to kind of get that over.
Yeah, because that role's already taken.
Yeah.
And I didn't read it that way. I sort of thought of it for the reasons you just said, right? Which is that WWE, very pro-military, very, they're not gonna make a heel character whose main selling point is that they're in the military. So if they're going to emphasize that part, which we don't know really off the basis of this one video package, but if that's where they're going, then I assume it's kind of a badass babyface figure.
I think they'll struggle with Evans as a babyface. I think the company has always struggled trying to present her as a babyface because this will be the second attempt they've done at it, and it got over a wet fart.
They've struggled with her as a heel as well. I'm not saying that's her fault at all, but look, the fact that they've repackaged her so many times, they just haven't found whatever it is. I'm sure there is an it out there for her.
She's got a great look.
Yeah,
she's a very good promo.
Yeah, really talented. But there's for some people, sometimes it just doesn't quite
click.
Stick, and you've got to find something that does. So maybe it's okay. Well, why don't we go for a badass kind of, not even babyface, almost like tweener kind of,
the shades of grey.
Yeah,
neither one nor the other.
But you're sort of more sympathetic than not because you're kind of cool and people are going to cheer for you, sort of thing.
I think to put a positive on this, I think the SmackDown Women's division does need something. I feel like Ronda Rousey has kind of suffocated that division a lot in 2022, particularly since Triple H took over, because Liv Morgan's title run completely fell apart because all the focus was on Ronda and Ronda not really selling for Morgan. And I think actually that feud massively devalued Liv Morgan's stock. And we'll talk about that when we come to the Gauntlet match maybe. And the rest of the SmackDown Women's division has suffered because of that as well. Like there's lots of women on the SmackDown roster, but none of them feel over, with perhaps the only exception of Raquel Rodriguez. But even then, it feels like she's just being built up to be fed to Ronda.
Yeah.
So a new character coming in, a new character that clearly they're going to be giving a push to, could actually really be a good positive for the women's division on the blue brand.
I know we're probably getting ahead of ourselves into the Gauntlet match, but the Ronda match with Rodriguez is going to be next week. Next week, right? So it's done before New Year.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they set up something that carries it through to the Rumble. But yeah, I mean, either by the first week of January or at most after the Rumble, what you got?
Which is why everyone keeps saying, well, probably Charlotte's coming back. And perhaps it is Charlotte comes back and you just do Ronda Charlotte at Mania because that's the match that WWE seemingly love more than any match that match they love more than Brock versus Roman is Ronda versus Charlotte. It's the match they always want to do, and they did it at this year's Mania. Like, Charlotte feels like the only other option. But perhaps, we're building up Lacey Evans, and we'll do Evans Rousey at Mania instead. I can't see it personally. I think they'll go in a different direction.
There's a lot of road to cover.
A lot
if they're going to do that.
And particularly if you want, because otherwise you're going into Mania with both of them likely getting booed.
Yeah.
Because unless you can do a really good job with Evans to make her a babyface, but I think you'll always struggle with it.
Yeah. And I'm imagining they want Mania plans pretty much set in stone by the Rumble.
I would say so, yeah.
So that even if she had her in-ring debut, or at least not necessarily a match, but showed up in person next week with this new gimmick, you've only got 3 weeks to road test it before you've got to decide whether you're pulling the trigger or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's a long shot.
I think it's a long shot as well. I think we'll certainly see where we go with the Evans character. But what did you make of the video package? Why don't you let us know in the comments down below? Do you think that there's room for a Lacey Evans character like this? Do you think that Lacey Evans will actually get over with this gimmick? I'm curious to see, because as I said, I think she's got a great look. She's a great promo. She actually is pretty decent in ring as well. She kind of like has everything she needs. It's just she hasn't had that one thing that can, like you mentioned earlier, that just is the final missing piece of the puzzle, is that character that actually connects with an audience and gets her over. So we'll certainly see. But we'll go through the rest of SmackDown now. And my first note I made here was, well, one of the benefits of taping a show that's got Roman on it means that you get 2 episodes with Roman on it.
Yeah.
And next week Roman's on the show, so that's 3 straight weeks of Roman.
Like almost full time.
What is this?
What is this?
2018? Yeah, we're going to get 3 straight weeks of Roman Reigns. In fact, they even said next week will be Roman's first match on SmackDown since June.
Yeah.
Dude's got a sweet deal now.
Yeah. They're bigging up like John Cena's first match of 2022. It's like, well, it's almost.
Oh, okay. Well, it's only almost his first TV match.
Not on pay-per-view.
Well, I mean, they actually made that point as well, because a lot of this is like kind of highlighting the importance of next week's match. It's not just Kevin and Sami are in the match together, which for me is like the most intriguing part of it. They're putting over the star power of this. It's Roman Reigns, the man who's been champion for like 800 odd days or whatever it is, versus, as Michael Cole put it, the greatest of all time in John Cena. And this will be his first match of 2022. It'll be his only match of 2022. But it also means he will have wrestled a match on WWE TV every single year since 2002.
Yeah, which, by the way, is 21 years. Not 20. It's the same as this stupid thing when 20th anniversary of WrestleMania. You know, It's like, no, when you're on the 20th, it's the 19th anniversary. This year will be
yes, because 2002 will be 1.
Sorry to be Scrooge, but that sort of mathematical error really annoys me.
But this will be he's wrestled every year for WWE on TV since 2002. I feel really bad for Cultaholic. They had a very good tweet saying that this will be the first year that he hasn't wrestled a match since 2001 or something. And then WWE went and ruined it. It's almost like WWE saw Cultaholic's tweet and were like, what? Is that true?
They just hate Cultaholic.
They called up John and were like, can you wrestle for us on the 30th? Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's an ongoing feud between Triple H and Adam Pacitti.
It's about time someone was reporting on this.
Yes.
Because Pacitti won't say it publicly. But they're out to get him.
Hi, Adam, by the way. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Adam. And to Ross and to Jack and to all the lads at Cultaholic. But mostly Tom. I thought this was a really good promo, though, because this was Paul Heyman hyping up a lot of things. It was hyping up the match tonight between the Usos and Hit Row. It's hyping up Solo Sikoa versus Sheamus next week. And then that big tag match.
I think it's Paul Heyman at his absolute best.
Yes.
Because what he's essentially doing is saying, like, you know, reading between the lines, it's very much like, there's not much on this week. I'm going to tell you about 3 things. Only one of them's tonight, and it's probably the least likely to be newsworthy. And the other 2 are next week when you're not here to the live audience, you know. So, but he manages it, doesn't he?
He does.
Paul Heyman,
absolutely
unbelievable. I was thinking, is Roman Reigns now getting to be the best main event heel in WWE of our lifetimes?
Of our lifetimes. Huh.
And just longevity, character.
Yeah. I mean, because like the heel thing's now been on 2 years or so.
Yeah.
And like when I think back to like the heels of like the heel of my childhood was Triple H.
Yeah. I think he's the main alternative pick.
I would say so, because he was forever a heel. And even when he was a babyface, it almost felt like
I don't want to cheer him.
I mean, there weren't like the crowd. 2002, the crowd really did get behind him, but
there was a comeback from
injury. Yeah. And I feel like his 2006 run as a babyface was just all going like, but like, when are you going to go heel again, though, right?
The DX reunions.
It was it was very.
Like,
bad.
I would say like 2000 Triple H, like the McMahon Helmsley thing when he's first
always
world champion, always winning, dominating the show.
Yeah,
that's the most reminiscent of this Roman Reigns run that I would say so.
Yeah, because you've also got the faction behind you as well, which he had in with like DX and things like that.
And you're just always excited to see him. Like when SmackDown started last night and the Bloodline music starts, I'm like, oh, all right, we're on. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's rare to have that with a heel.
I've said faction. I've said this before actually on about Raw. Like Raw feels like it's missing some star power.
Yeah.
And on the weeks when they announced the Bloodline are on the show, it really does feel like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, I instantly like a meerkat just sort of stand up and be like, okay, cool. I need to pay attention now. The Usos are going to be on the show, or Sammy's going to be on the show, or Solo's going to be on the show. This past Raw opened with a Roman Reigns promo.
Yeah, huge.
Clearly like a pre-taped thing that was done in conjunction with all the other stuff they've been taping with Roman for this show. But him just being on the show was like okay, Roman's here. Not here, but he had this presence over the show.
And we were joking about, not showing up on SmackDown very often, but actually, in all seriousness, I think it's great.
It actually makes him feel special
because they sometimes try and book people as special attractions, and it's a special occasion when they show up, and normally they don't have the discipline to do it. There was talk for many years that that's what the Big Show was going to be used as.
Absolutely,
just used every week, turning heel or face every second week. It wasn't quite done. Whereas like the way they've managed to, and this isn't just credit to Triple H, this is credit to the Vince era as well, because this was, as you say, it's been going on 2 years. Like the way they've built that, and the way the Bloodline is, and you care about everyone in the faction as well.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, the Jey Uso stuff in particular with Roman before he sort of finally accepted Roman as the tribal chief a couple of years ago. Remarkable. Like
the Jimmy stuff's great.
I
love Solo's addition to the group, and then all the Sami Zayn stuff is they are hands down the best thing in WWE right now. And I'd almost argue like they're probably the best thing in professional wrestling right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you were starting a wrestling, if we were starting rival wrestling promotions and you were lining everyone up, along a wall to pick teams like you did at school back in the day when you were picking sports teams, if you could pick anyone from the wrestling world, you were going to start, whether it's an announcer, a wrestler, any on-screen talent at all, first one you go is Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
100%.
Dude has got incredible star power to him.
And, some of the other guys in the faction we just mentioned would be in the first 10.
I would say so as well, yeah. And Sami is one of those guys for me.
Yep.
I think Sami's had a great 2022, and this was a hell of a promo that he cut here on Kevin Owens. Like Roman Reigns cut this really good promo saying, like, we're going to smash you, but that's not me I want to hear from. No. My boy Sami here, he's looking irritated. He's looking agitated. I want to hear what he's going to do next week. And Sami cuts this promo on Kevin Owens, calling him this black cloud that has hung over him his entire career. And it annoys him that his name is always connected to him. And next week he wants to end that.
But then there was that thing last week as well where he said, I'm his only friend. And then he corrected himself to, I was his only friend.
Yeah.
It's like,
so good.
Like, are you sowing seeds? And if so, for what? And when are you going to...
I think that's why next week's match for me, I can't wait for it.
No.
Because it's not just the star power of, John Cena's wrestling on the show and he hasn't done that all year. Or, Roman Reigns is on the show and he hasn't wrestled since June. You've got that. But also underneath that, you've got this awesome storyline between Kevin and Sami. And that's the thing I'm really, really interested to see.
In fact, I would go as far as saying, and I mean this with no disrespect to John Cena, because I love John Cena, he's probably the least interesting thing about the match.
In a way,
which is bizarre.
Yeah.
That's not an insult to anyone. It's a credit to just how good the Bloodline situation is. John Cena's wrestling for the first time in over a year on SmackDown, and like it's almost a side note to the main point about that match, which is really quite a remarkable achievement when you think about it.
I'm really, really excited for next week's match. I think it's going to be a really, really fun one. And it's like, next week's pretty stacked as well. You got Solo versus Sheamus, you got Ronda versus Raquel, but I'm almost like fast forward. I want to see this main event.
Oh yeah, and so assuming that we are still at some point heading to, the Bloodline stabbing Sami in the back, or Sami coming to his senses and deciding that they're not for him, when are they going to pull that trigger and go?
The reported the rumor is it's Roman Kevin Owens at the Rumble, and then it's Roman Sami at Chamber.
Because isn't it in Sami's hometown?
It's in Montreal.
Yeah.
So there, which will then lead you to the WrestleMania plans, which is in a perfect world Roman versus The Rock. But there's also news that he might do both nights, face Cody on night 1, face The Rock on night 2. I'll be honest, I'm less into that. I'd much rather just be him versus The Rock.
Yeah.
Have The Rock wins the Rumble, do Roman Rock at WrestleMania.
But what do you gain? If you've got Rock, then what do you gain by putting Cody in there as well?
I think it overshadows Cody.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what Cody gains from it.
Exactly. It overshadows Cody's Rumble win. It overshadows him potentially winning a title on night 1, because the focus will just be on what is arguably the much bigger match of Roman versus Rock.
And no one's going to believe that Cody's going to win it and ruin night 2's main event. I don't know if they book it that way, but it doesn't really. I don't see how that works.
Or do you have Cody win the titles and then it's just it's Roman versus The Rock for no titles on the line or not. For me, it's not what I would do. I would just put focus on one of those. You can do Roman and Cody in the summer.
Yeah.
But just like focus on, like, if Rock is your big match, if you can get The Rock, that's the match to do.
And if you can't, you do Roman Cody.
You can do Cody, and that's fine. It's a good backup plan.
Yeah.
But I think if you've got both, I would do Rock.
Yeah, and then put Cody with Rollins, or do whatever. But
so for me, like, when you pull the trigger, I'm thinking probably the Rumble. Is maybe the time to do it, or like maybe it's the Rumble. my fantasy booking that I pitched that I've really I'm so fixated on, and I've mentioned this in a few shows now, so I apologize for this, is Sammy, you don't do the turn at all before Chamber. And it's only Roman and Sammy, because Sammy wins a match that Kevin Owens basically wins for him. So it's like a 5-way or something. Kevin Owens hits the stunner, drags Sammy across. So it forces Roman versus Sammy. And the entire build for it is Sammy being like, I'm just going to lay down. I'm just going to lay down for you. I'm not going to do anything. But always like staring at the titles. Maybe he picks up a title or something along those lines. And then in the match itself, when he goes to lay down, tries to get a quick roll up. 1-2, Roman kicks out. And then it's like, sorry, my wrestling instincts just kicked in. And that's when you do the bloodline turn on Sammy. Ooh. And you basically just do it as a double turn.
I love it.
So you focus so much then on Roman going uber heel, and Sammy in front of his Montreal home crowd becomes the rousing babyface.
Then you've almost got to put them at Mania though. It's so good.
You've
almost got to then continue it.
So the rumor is that it's then Kevin and Sammy versus the Usos for the tag titles.
Okay.
At Mania. So then they're the people who can dethrone the Usos.
Yeah.
And then you can always return to those two versus Roman down the line.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the great thing about this storyline. There's so many avenues you can go down with it. I love all of it. The Usos defeated Hit Row to retain their tag team championships. Given that this was a taped show, I thought this would go longer. Because we were joking before we came on here. It's a tape show, so we had both a Bloodline and a Bray Wyatt entrance. Like, well, there's 20 minutes of the show.
Kill some time, yeah.
I'm only going to get a Karrion Cross entrance in there as well, kill even further time. So this didn't go that long.
No.
They wrestled for a little bit, went to the commercial break, and when it came back, they were in the final sequence.
Yeah, and it wasn't a particular. Obviously, it wasn't like clean the win, but it wasn't. It didn't really give you a lot of hope that they're building up Hit Row for a rematch. Because given the fact that they won the 3-way thing the week before to earn the shot, like I was sort of thinking, oh, okay, Hit Row's the new.
Yeah,
but it seems like
filler.
Seems like it was just a 2-week mini storyline and done.
I think what it was is exactly what it was on TV, which was just, well, we're taping 2 weeks, so Hit Row win this one week 1, then they lose to the Usos week 2. It's just it was just filler.
Yeah.
Totally fine filler.
I didn't. Maybe I should have seen that coming. I just sort of figured that they were going somewhere with it.
No, I think this was just filler. I also said at the start, the good guys won every match, but that's a lie because the baddies won here. But yeah, it was a totally fine TV match.
Yeah.
Kayla Braxton interviewed Imperium with Ludwig Kaiser, talking about how this is so good.
I think he's so good.
This is beneath us.
Yeah.
This is an insult to our sacred match.
No one in WWE right now quite does like just looking down their nose and talking about how with disdain about people like Kaiser.
Yeah. You are a man. You've called a lot of ring camp stuff.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of this.
Actually, never Kaiser.
No, but you did a lot of Walters,
Walter,
and Thatcher, and a lot of that whole the ring is sacred and all that sort of stuff. So I think they're doing from your aspect of calling these matches, do you feel like they're really doing a job in getting that characteristic over?
Yeah. I think that's important to it, and I think Gunther's a very interesting example. I'm sorry, I know we're skipping ahead slightly, but obviously he just physically looks different now. He used to be bigger, now he's just leaner and meaner. But it does sort of work, doesn't it?
Really does.
Part of me kind of thinks, no, I want him at 300 pounds.
You tank of a man that he was.
But he just looks like a machine now, and it sort of adds to that. Anything other than pure wrestling is sort of beneath us, kind of thing. So yeah, no, I love it, and I think Imperium Bloodline aside is one of the best acts on SmackDown.
Oh, really? I think they're so good. And the match with Ricochet last week was awesome.
We'll talk about him as well in a minute, but his career is back on track, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Not quite the case for some of the women in the SmackDown women's division, however, because we did have a Gauntlet match to crown a #1 contender for Ronda Rousey next week. This is a match that featured 2 of the returns we've had in the last couple of months to WWE in Emma and Tegan Nox, and they wrestled together for approximately 3 minutes. Emma was eliminated quickly first by Xia Li. The crowd really went into it much. I thought Xia Li's her little spinning kick that she does was very cool.
Yeah.
But then Tegan Nox came out full of piss and vinegar because Xia Li cost her the tag titles last week. And Xia Li just pinned her very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, Sucks to be Tegan and Emma, I guess.
It reminds me, without wading into the WWE, AEW, who's better wars, it does remind me slightly of a lot of this kind of, return after return after return. It's a bit like the debut after debut after debut in AEW, where it's a bit like, okay, cool, you're bringing people in, but you've got to have something for them all to do. And it just feels like with some of the women in this Gauntlet match, like you said, it just feels a little bit like, they'll just lose. It's not like there doesn't seem like there's a plan. Having brought some of these people back to big fanfare, it feels like it's already fizzled. Maybe we should be reserving judgment because maybe they've got great plans for where these guys are going creatively in the next few weeks. But at the moment, you did watch that Gauntlet match and think there's only one or two people in this match where there's any direction. Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, Tegan Nox in particular, because she came back. They lost the tag title match last week, and then she loses quickly here. Like Tegan Nox, it feels like we've brought her back with no plan, no real we'll get to that when we get to it. Emma, I guess at least they're doing the Madcap Moss thing because they're a real life couple, so we'll make them an on-screen couple as well. And I think she's setting up something with Scarlett for later on in the
slapped her right later, yeah.
But it's I don't know. I mean, Emma in particular really feels like a kind of a dud return. I feel like Hit Row is another one that feels like they've just lost all momentum since they came back. There's a lot of the WWE rehires that have massively slowed down and are just bodies on the roster. Very, very quickly have just become bodies on the roster. There was that WrestleVotes report that said that there are several of the summer rehires have completely underwhelmed Triple H. And I feel like Hit Row might be one of those. I don't know about Emma because she's only come back recently, and Tegan Nox only been here for a handful of weeks. But I hope that there are some plans down the line for them. And with a lot of these, I do have more confidence in this regime than I would have done the previous regime.
But I mean, I guess if that's true, that report, that Triple H is unhappy with some of them. I guess the response some of them might have would be like, well, give me something more to do.
Yeah, I hadn't had anything to do since I come back.
I mean, what with Hit Row, for example, what would what else could they have done with the creative that they've been given? I mean, it's not like it's not all.
They haven't really done much since they came back to
it. I mean, it's not all like, oh, we just haven't impressed. It's like, well, I mean, I've got to go by the script I'm given. So it's a little bit of, it seems a bit harsh in some cases, at least, to blame them on, oh, well, you've underwhelmed since you've come back. When, I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes or how they're doing at the performance center or wherever they're training or whatever. But based on what we see as viewers, a lot of it's like, well, to be fair to some of these guys, they haven't really been given
a lot to work with.
To do.
Yeah. Raquel Rodriguez then came out next and she beat Xia Li quickly. A lot of these were short. I actually thought a lot of these would be longer matches because it was a taped show, but they weren't quite quick. So Raquel beat Xia Li with Li trying to work over the injured arm of Raquel. And then Raquel took on Liv Morgan. I thought this was the best action of the Gauntlet. It was certainly the one that was given the most time. It's probably the best that Liv Morgan's looked. Certainly, not even since she lost the belt, since Triple H took over creative. I think this is the best we've seen of Liv Morgan. This had all of the elements of January, February Liv Morgan that the crowd just completely fell in love with. Even go back to sort of November, December the previous year, really fell in love with, and she got organically over with the crowd. Lots of shades of that within this match. She did lose, to Raquel Rodriguez, who reversed the Oblivion into the powerbomb. But I thought it was easily the best action of the whole Gauntlet. Yeah, it was,
But yeah, I mean, Liv Morgan, again, it's a bit like, come on, you know how to do this with Liv Morgan because it's been done before, so...
Yeah, and I feel like she wasn't doing any of the Harley Quinn stuff that she's been doing recently. This didn't feel like the extreme Liv Morgan.
It was toned down character-wise.
Very much so, yeah. This felt like Liv Morgan of January.
Yeah, it was in-ring was great, but there wasn't loads of character there. And again, I guess because the focus of the match is on Rodriguez, probably. Yeah. But yeah, she's another one where you just sort of... So I felt like I'm being negative with a lot of this, with the guys in the Gauntlet. But yeah, it is a bit like... With her, it's not like with someone like Lacey Evans where you think, oh, they haven't found the right package, they haven't found the right gimmick or whatever. It's like, no, you know what to do with Liv Morgan because you know what the crowd like, and it's just sort of
we haven't quite got
been an afterthought for a while. This, as you say, this has been the most promising appearance we've seen from Morgan for a while. But I mean, that's quite a low bar.
Yeah.
In terms of how she's been presented. So, but I'm a big fan. So I hope they continue to build.
I'll be honest, like this was the portion of the Gauntlet that started to like pick me back up, because I was kind of a little bit down on it with the Tegan Nox and Emma stuff. But this, like, I really enjoyed this bit, and then she very quickly beat Sonya Deville, who was the final entrant of the Gauntlet. And I thought, oh, that was a good bit of fun. Builds Raquel up for next week. Ronda Rousey comes out and she's like, you know what? You haven't won yet because there's one more surprise entrant. And out comes her friend Shayna. And Shayna Baszler comes out.
Now, how do the rules work here?
Well, I guess...
Does she have the ability to add people?
Well, maybe she'd struck a deal with Pierce backstage to add her in, but Pierce hadn't passed that note on to Raquel.
So it's a communication error.
It was the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
Okay, classic corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
WWE.com didn't know either.
Yeah, okay.
The production team didn't know because they only had a graphic with 5 of them.
Yeah.
So who knows? But Shayna Baszler came out. She tore off the arm brace that Raquel had on because her arm a few weeks back, and she was taunting the crowd with it. And Raquel very quickly rolled up Shayna Baszler to pin her and bailed out the ring. So Ronda and Shayna were all so mad. Honestly, from the Liv Morgan thing, I had a good time with this, and it was filler stuff, but I had fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine, and I think the one thing you might say is that given the angle last week where they injured the arm and everything, and her coming out with it was pretty clear from the beginning what the storyline was. I guess you could argue you didn't quite know what the finish was going to be, particularly once Shayna Baszler was out, because it could have been that Shayna then beats her and puts another obstacle in the way of her getting the match. But like, it wasn't rocket science who was going to win.
No,
the vast majority of those individual bits of the Gauntlet.
I thought they might have done more of a beatdown of the arm to really put over that, like, what condition will she be in? But like, they could certainly say she beat 3 women in order to get to this point. So she wrestled a hell of a long time, and she's not 100% going into next week's match. Plus, it's the Christmas special,
which obviously gives them an out as well.
Yeah, but this is the Christmas special, so you want to have her everyone be happy. So we don't get the beatdown, we just get happiness. She won. The heels were also mad.
Yeah, festive
cheer all around. Not so much for a cameraman, though.
No, I was going to say, I could think of someone who didn't have a particularly festively cheerful day.
He had a terrible day at the office, this lad. Because Bray Wyatt came out for a promo. Easy 8 minutes of time filled there.
By the way, I was thinking this morning, I would absolutely love if whenever I start talking that there's this background track going because it's so tense.
It is tense. It's a very cool entrance.
I just want to listen to everything he's saying, even though I don't understand most of what it is.
Yeah, it's like a lot of old Bray Wyatt promos.
Yeah.
Talks about, hey man.
Hey, might surprise you, but the buzzards sometimes fly to sea.
Have you ever caught a fly in a jar, man? And what that fly does to try and get out of that jar, man? It's like, I don't know, but
no, I've never done that.
I've never done it, Bray.
I don't even own a jar.
But I'm sure you've caught loads, bud. But yeah, he came out to basically get an apology from LA Knight, get an apology from the crowd. He told us all he is not Uncle Howdy. And last week proved as much that he's not Uncle Howdy.
And he must be bloody sick of it, because it seems like this Uncle Howdy is quite the black sheep of the family. I mean, imagine, Bray Wyatt's dad is IRS.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine in the Wyatt Shyster household growing up. Erwin R. Shyster, who's pretty straight-laced tax collector.
Yeah. Well, it was all he ever talked about was doing the taxes.
His wife must have been like, I know he's a bit unorthodox, but you're going to have to invite your brother Howdy over for Christmas.
Drunk Uncle Howdy that comes round to ruin Christmas dinner for everyone.
Yeah. Can't even dress properly.
Got this silly little mask and everything. Yeah. Looking like a character from the Mighty Boosh.
Now, Bray, now, Bo, you behave yourself with Uncle Howdy.
So, I guess we can say they are 2 separate people. We saw it with our own eyes.
Yep.
However, during this promo, Bray's there and he's talking about Uncle Howdy and stuff. And then he stops. And as far as time stands still. And he literally says, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. And it really felt like it was a botch in his promo. And he forgot what his next line was. And it was just like, no, I don't know where I'm going next. And then it's obviously all part of the plan because he
I thought that. And I was like, wait, this is taped.
Yeah, you'd have cut this all out.
So you would have cut it, yeah.
But he throws the microphone down and he just starts wailing on this cameraman that's in the ring. Adam Pearce and security and producers run down. I didn't spot P.T. Williams, but I'm sure he was there. The star of WWE. And I hope he's a Rumble entrance. That's my hope for 2023. That's
a forlorn dream.
P.T. Williams is a Rumble entrant and shows everyone how to do a Canadian Destroyer properly.
can't see it. I can't see it.
No, it's either him or Abyss.
I'm ready to humbly apologise to you, Luke, if I'm wrong, but I cannot see it.
No. Who do you think is more likely, Petey Williams or Abyss? As
Neither.
a Rumbler?
Drew Carey.
Getting his second Rumble entrance.
Pete Rose. There's a long list.
Do you remember that WrestleMania? Was it 15 or 16 rather, where King spoiled the Pete Rose appearance?
Oh, did he?
Well, yeah, because there was.
I remember it was 3 years in a row.
Yeah, every year Kane killed Pete Rose.
Yeah.
He killed him at 14, then did it again at 15.
15 he came out as the chicken, didn't he?
Yeah, and then at 16, and it might have been 15, because King on commentary just at one point was like, "Hey, I saw Pete Rose backstage." It's like, spoil the fun, King. Yeah.
Oops.
It's supposed to be a surprise, mate. But anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
So the security producers run down, and this was shot so wildly and chaotic, and not in that Kevin Dunn of like camera zooms in, zooms out, crash zooms, moving up and down. This was like kind of camera angles that you don't usually see. I mean, in some ways it was like security footage style.
I liked it a lot.
Really liked this. Very different, very unique, and because of that, very effective.
Yeah, because they didn't like, go into their hushed Michael Cole tones and and stick on it as he got taken out, as the cameraman got taken out on a stretcher to make it clear that it's an angle.
Yeah,
it was like, oh my god, let's go to break.
It felt like production errors. It felt like Bray Wyatt went against the script. Like if this was 2000 WCW, they would have cut back and Michael Cole would have said like, Bray Wyatt went against the script there. Yeah. Like, that's the sort of like feeling they were going for, and I think it really, really worked.
Yeah, and that's exactly how you should do something like that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, because you're battling against the wrestling audience always thinks everything is a work. Because most of it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, almost everything is. And so like to just be able to successfully sow that seed of doubt. Wait, was that meant to? That went to break really quickly.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Really, really cool. Next up was Angel versus Rey Mysterio. I completely forgot about Angel and Humberto. So thankfully they had a promo last week, and then that set up. I mean, really, this was just to further the feud between Rey and Karrion Kross, because Kross and Scarlett were in the crowd watching the match, having a bit of a chuckle when Rey was being beaten up, and then looking a bit frowny when Rey won. But it was, hey, it's your usual fun Rey Mysterio match. The kids liked it.
Yeah. I mean, fine. Like as you say, I haven't seen Angel and Angel and Humberto for a little while.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to them. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it just feels like they always show up for the festive episodes.
Yeah, like
to lose to someone.
Angel Garza, like I've followed his career for a long time. I used to commentate some AAA that he was in, and it was like, this was when his uncle was famous wrestler as well, Hector Garza, and like there's this sort of feeling with him that he's got that pedigree. Obviously, he's like maybe second or third generation or whatever he is, and like. Obviously, he has the look for it and very technically sound. And I when they signed him, I sort of thought with Garza that it was like, okay, this is the next big like Latino,
because he's charismatic as all get out as well.
And again, we don't know what goes on, but for whatever reason, it hasn't really taken off, has it? Like
my mate once argued with me that Hector Garza had a better moonsault than Kurt Angle.
Yeah, great. Hector Garza was incredible.
It was awesome. It was during his very brief TNA run that he had. And he did a moonsault this match. My man was like, it's the greatest moonsault I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. And that whole Casanova gimmick started with him. If you're an Angel Garza fan, go and Google some old Hector Garza stuff, definitely.
But Ray reversed the 619, hit one of his own, and then in a lovely slingshot DDT for the win. Very, very nice. And Kross looked unimpressed about all of this. And then later on, Braun and Ricochet cut a promo. Then Karrion Kross and Scarlett were walking backstage, and Emma stopped them to be like, how dare you disrespect the legend of Rey Mysterio? And she slapped Scarlett across the face to, I guess, presumably set up Scarlett's in-ring debut.
Yeah, I mean, Karrion Kross is going to be busy with Rey, I assume, so it's not like it's just...
Or is it mixed tag? And it's Emma and Madcap Moss versus Scarlett and Kross.
Yeah. Or Emma and Mysterio.
There you go. I get the only reason I go with Emma and Madcap because they're setting up their relationship.
Their thing, yeah.
I mean, I'm less into that than I am just Kross having a straight singles.
By the way, I like Karrion Kross's role in that little segment. as well, where he's just like, you have no idea what you've just done.
Which is funny because they've always been, it's usually the opposite of, like, you know, Scarlet is the siren that warns of the coming of Karrion Kross. And in this case, it was Kross warning of the siren coming. I thought there was some nice stuff in there. I don't know how into I am with Scarlet's the in-ring. Like, maybe Karrion's another one of those summer rehires that has underwhelmed.
Well, I mean, as you said, we need something in the women's division, right? We need some character development. We need some reason to care about more than 2 or 3 people in that division. So it's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
To have set up some, you know, a storyline with a couple of the, you know, the women backstage and stuff, I think is something. Let's see where it goes. Yeah.
Speaking of killing time, we got a 6-minute video package for John Cena.
Although I was like, what is this? You know, I know who John Cena is. And by the end of it, I was like, John Cena's my favorite wrestler. It was. I mean,
it's such a good video
package, don't they?
But it's because, you know, you got Michael Cole, who's always saying he's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And this video package was here to say, like, no, but for real,
for
though,
real.
Like,
Yeah,
he is the greatest star we've ever had in this company. He's bigger than Hogan. He's bigger than Austin. He's bigger than The Rock. He is the biggest star we've ever had. And in some ways, you can make the argument because you don't talk about longevity. 20 years on top. I mean, granted, he's not been active for all of those, but the years that he was active, it was way longer than Austin was ever on top, longer than Rock was ever on top, longer than when Hogan was on top. He was just on top for years and years and years, even when we as fans told him, no thanks.
It does make you think a little bit how cool it would have been if they had finally turned him heel.
They'd have done the heel turn.
Because you've seen... I mean, the equivalent to that is Roman, right? Where it's like they were revitalizing him. No, he's going to be our top babyface. Shut up, fans. For years, and then for whatever reason, with Roman, they decided, no, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, look what's happened. It's incredible.
It's the greatest thing that's happened to him.
And you do wonder. I know John Cena apparently didn't want to do it because he does all the Make-A-Wish stuff, which is great, and everything like that. But creatively, it would have been good.
John Cena, for me, he is, I think, one of the most interesting, like, wrestling careers. I mean, not just of the modern era, but I think of all time in terms of like longevity and things like that. But the fan perception of him, because I was in my 20s when he was first on top. I was at university, and so I was part of that anti-Cena brigade because I watched his matches and I'm like, this dude's not ready. Like, this he's not good. And I didn't like the Doctor of Thugonomics stuff because I was like,
oh, really? I loved it.
No, because I wasn't watching when he was doing Doctor of Thugonomics.
Okay.
I saw it later on. And all I saw was someone who was just bad at rapping.
Yeah.
His raps were, a dooba-da-doo, a dooba-da-dick. Like, and that was all he would ever do. And it didn't work for me, even in hindsight.
But when he was a heel doing that, as a mid-card guy in like 2003, when he sort of just, well, not immediately after he first came in, but once they finally gave him gimmick after he was just a guy in pants to start with, like that early heel fucking partly because the rapping wasn't great.
It was bad.
But it was just irritating.
Yeah.
But having him as this kind of just mean guy who like does this unpleasant rapping and then beats up someone smaller, that it kind of works.
I never bought it though because he's so unintimidating.
Yeah. You think?
Well, he's got goofy selling was always John Cena's thing, and goofy facial expressions.
Yeah. Okay.
And then when he was, top babyface, it was goofy over the top selling. And like I can say same as his punches were horrendous, his feet work was all over the place, and there were just people who were more over and better than he was, but the company went with him, and that created this whole anti-Cena stance. And I was part of that because I was like, no, there's 1,000 guys that we should be pushing over this lad. But time proved that I was wrong, and I'm so fascinated because you've got guys who are in their 20s who hated John Cena who now love him, but you've got kids who watched him in the early 2000s who are now in their 20s that could be like, we were right all along. And I think it's just a fascinating little career progression that the man has gone through. Go back to and it was in this video package, if Cena wins, we riot. That whole ECW One Night Stand too with the Rob Van Dam match, and people they were out for blood.
Yeah, and also in the video package, I like that they didn't ignore that. They didn't pretend that he was wildly popular.
No, and they're able to do that now because everyone's now on Cena's side. All those men who are in their 20s who are now in their late 30s and in their 40s are just like, oh no, yeah, we were wrong. We wasted our time hating John Cena because we were just young, angry men. And now we all love him. So like everyone loves him. So you can do the whole, he went through a period of time where no one particularly liked him, but kids liked him. Whereas actually at the time they were really going out of their way to be like, it's only some fans. You know, it's fans of rock and roll.
A vocal minority.
A vocal minority, yeah. Like it was the build for Triple H Cena at Mania, where they were like, hey, metal fans don't like John Cena, but hip hop fans love John Cena. And they were really like posting, it was like hip hop versus...
a lot of hip hop fans there that night.
No. It was hip hop versus rock and roll and all this sort of stuff. And it never really worked or clicked. But now we can just talk about, fans hated him for a long period of time, but he turned everyone around.
And by the way, on the subject of music, any video package that's got that song they use, what is it, remember the name or something, 10% pleasure, 20% pain. I'm like, yeah, right, I'm in. Like, yeah, I just love that song for a promo. It's so good.
Such a good video package. It was 6 minutes long, and it went on and it went on. Lots of archive footage from Austin and Rock, even Vince appearing on the show. They had archive footage of Vince McMahon, which I thought was interesting.
Do you think... the Vince stuff is... I hadn't really thought about that, but the Vince stuff is interesting. What I was going to say, though, is do you think it's kind of interesting that they felt they needed to do a 6-minute video package on Cena?
No, I think it's just more they had time to fill.
You think? I was wondering, is it like... halfway through it, I was a bit like, wait, are there some people who don't know who John Cena is?
I mean, there could be. Maybe brand new fans. You know, you're talking about the greatest of all time. In a way, I could possibly equate it to. So I started watching wrestling in 2000s because previously to that, and I've talked about this on other shows, it was banned in my household. My mum was terrified of me watching it because she thought I would emulate it. She was right, because in the year 2000 I did get into it.
You are with a wrestling championship.
And I'm a wrestling championship belt, and I did emulate, and I did a lot of backyard wrestling in my teens and in my 20s. I did some backyard wrestling. There is, but it no longer exists because I made sure that it no longer exists. Because it's me wrestling very badly and being smashed with light tubes.
We'll double check it doesn't exist.
Doing a lot of that garbage backyard wrestling. I was part of that scene. So my mum was right, as it turns out. So I got into in wrestling in 2000. So I didn't see Shawn Michaels. I didn't see him as like this crowning guy. And in 2000, they always kept bringing him back for things. Brought him back for the Judgment Day match with Triple H and The Rock. He had that promo Armageddon where he talks about, like, you know, the importance of Hell in a Cell, and he would just crop up on TV every now and again. But for me, I had no frame of reference of who this guy was, so I actually could have really done with a 6-minute video package that would have explained to me, like, and you know, when he came back in 2002 for the match against Triple H, that was a lot of stuff that we then got was for, hey, if you weren't here, here's why Shawn Michaels is important.
Yeah, I think that must be it, because I think, like, actually, if you think about it, if you're a youngish wrestling fan, let's say you've only been a fan for 3 or 4 years, right? You know John Cena more as a movie star. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He used to be in WWE, right? But he's the guy in the movies, and so it did make. I hadn't crossed my mind at all that there was anyone in the universe who doesn't know about John Cena's backstory in wrestling. And then, like, halfway through this video package, I was like, oh yeah, wait, not everyone is. It's
kind of weird. It's things that we don't really think about a lot. I said this to Ollie recently. There are kids now who are adults who have only ever known Raw being a 3-hour show. And in their mind,
poor kids,
that is how Raw should be. And that is how, like, and I didn't twig it for ages and ages and ages. And only when I was having a conversation with Ollie about it, that something really snapped with me. And I was like, oh, that's why we often get messages from people being like, AEW's got too big a roster, they need a 3rd hour. Because that's, in their mind, is the answer to the problem. Oh, we'll just add a 3rd hour to the show. Because that's what WWE did, and it fixed the problem. So actually, no. It made the whole show much, much worse. It made the product so much worse.
I was... spoiler for the next issue of WrestleTalk magazine, I've written an article about the 30th anniversary of Raw and how it started. And so I've been watching some of the 1993 episodes in the past few weeks.
The hour-long ones.
And they're an hour. I mean, on the network, because, you know, obviously there's no ad break, so they're like 44 minutes or something. By the time you've settled down and eaten a packet of crisps, you're like,
done.
Oh, that was quick. Like, but in a way, part of me thinks that would be wicked.
Yeah,
if you just squeezed everything in, maybe not an hour, but you know what I mean.
Like it goes back to 2 hours.
Yeah,
that'd be a nice thing.
Two's a nice compromise.
I mean, I think SmackDown works nicer at a 2-hour show. Dynamite works brilliantly at a 2-hour show. But yeah, I find it very interesting that there are kids who only ever known it as a 3-hour show, and so that for them is the way that it is.
Yeah,
and I think that's very interesting.
Yeah,
in the same way that, you know, like there are some new fans who are like, is Cena a wrestler? Like, I've only ever known him as that guy from Trainwreck or from the Suicide Squad.
Do we need to do it with The Rock?
In a way.
Maybe we do.
I mean, so, well, we'll go on to the main event in a second, because we've talked way long about this. But
sorry.
No, it's not. I don't apologize about it. I very much like it. 80 Podcast. Their second series that they did was The Rock's return for like the WrestleMania stuff he did with Cena. And one of the guys that was on that was like, look, I wasn't watching wrestling during the Attitude Era. So I was a fan in the mid 2000s. And then he came back. He was he was just a guy that was on movies, but I had no connection to him as a wrestler. So like his return did absolutely nothing for me because I've got no connection to him
Whereas
whatsoever.
to me, that night he came back on Raw, I was like phoning up my grandparents. Like, you never guess what happened.
The Rock's
oh
back.
My God.
It was all we were talking about. I was working in an office at the time. I was working for the Yellow Pages, and that's all we were talking about. The phone was like, "Did you hear?" Because we all thought it was Justin Bieber. Because that was the story, and that was the rumor at the time, is that it was Bieber.
It was unveiling a host for Mania.
And the story was it was Bieber. And actually, as the story goes, it was going to be Bieber until it became The Rock. But when The Rock came back, that was all everyone wanted to talk about. The phone was like, "Have you heard The Rock's back? Wrestling's saved. Wrestling's good again. The Rock's back."
And to be fair, Cena Rock would probably be a much better main event for Mania than Cena against Justin Bieber.
Hey, Justin Bieber was going to pin John Cena.
Yeah, and then have a rematch the next year.
And
wow.
He would have been pinned by Justin Bieber and Kevin Federline.
I'll tell you what, CM Punk would have had a point then about not being in the main event, wouldn't he?
Anyway, let's get in. We had the video package for Lacey Evans. Then we got into our main event, the Miracle on 34th Street fight between Imperium and Braun and Ricochet. Wouldn't be a Christmas episode without the Miracle on 34th Street fight. And hey, do you know what? Bit of fun in it.
I loved it.
Oh, it's great fun.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense in this match as well, because, you know, plunder, there's mince pies and everything. Well, I suppose cookies in America, but if this was in the UK, you would have hit them with mince pies and stuff. And like they just lots of plunder around the ring and everything. And they make their way to the stage. Imperium are on top. Ricochet's laid out. Braun Strowman is struggling. And there's these two giant presents. And Imperium open up one of them, and a ballerina comes out and does some ballet to the Nutcracker.
That was fine.
Yeah, and then she dances off, but it's to set up the punchline for it, where they open up another present, and the New Day come out, dressed as Nutcrackers, who then cracked Imperium in the nuts.
See, I didn't get it till the commentators explained it. I thought, oh, that's funny. They just kicked him in the balls.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and he goes, oh, the Nutcracker. I was like, okay,
yeah,
good pun.
The Nutcrackers cracked him in the nuts.
Can I give a shout out as well to Wade Barrett on commentary during this? Because like occasionally, when you're listening to commentary on WWE, you laugh out loud at something. And I had one of those moments when Michael Cole starts, you know, when they're throwing him into the Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And Michael Cole starts saying, oh, when I was a boy, we used to go to a Christmas tree farm. And Wade Barrett, nobody cares that you went to a Christmas tree farm. Shut up, Cole. I was like, yeah, that's funny.
Wade is so great on commentary. I love Stu. And so they get cracked in the nuts. That powers up Braun Strowman. Like, he gets his second win. He does his big choo-choo train stuff. And then he sees Ricochet down and out. So he grabs some mistletoe and goes, Samantha! Yeah. Screams to Samantha Irvin, who is dating Ricochet in IRL. And then he holds the mistletoe up. And then holds up this unconscious Ricochet. And Samantha gives him a big old smooch. And like spinach to Popeye, he's like, and he just powers up, runs wild. They hit some moves, and they win.
Who knew that was all it took, right?
I had a blast watching this.
Ricochet should do that every week. He'd be world champion.
So mistletoe's not just for Christmas.
No,
just hold it up above Samantha like all matches.
Would it work without the mistletoe? I don't know.
Well,
would it have the same effect?
I don't know, because they're not an on-screen couple, so you don't want to have it posed as just like.
Well, they are now.
Well, maybe.
They've been.
I'll be honest. I did have to Google it.
Yeah.
I just Googled. I was like, "Are they dating?"
Yeah.
It said, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, that's an even sweeter spot." Then
it's been, it's now out there, so it's canon now.
I had a lot of fun with this very silly match.
And on a slightly more serious note, it's another example. I hinted at this earlier, that Ricochet is having an absolute renaissance, isn't he? And I love it.
Yeah,
I love
great.
Ricochet.
Love to see it. Yeah, silly fun. A great way to end off a Christmas special. No like Walter showdown or anything with Braun. It was just, the good guys won. They beat the baddies.
And now, actually, if those two get married, I actually want Braun Strowman to officiate the wedding. Do you?
No, he'd be mad at them doing flips or something. But that was this week's SmackDown. I had a fun time with it. I gave it 3 out of 5 in the edited review.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly fine Christmas special.
Yeah, 3, I think, is a very fair score.
Absolutely. I'll just quickly double check that we haven't got any Patreon shout-outs we need to do, but I don't think we have. We do, in fact, because it's time to shout out our moderating team. What a nice way to end off the Christmas special here by giving you all the rundown of our great moderators. So, shout out to Andy, Chris, Devon, Jalen, John, Les, Paul, Rob, and Sean, and of course, because she never writes her name down in this, the mod mother, Jenna. Thank you all so much. We love our moderating team. Shout them out in the comments down below. Give me little clap emojis and that for them because we love our moderating team. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us here. Christmas Eve.
Yeah, where are you off to now? You're off to your in-laws?
Yes, I've got some work that I need to do back in the office. I've got some videos to schedule for the festive period.
Lovely.
And then I'm back to my in-laws.
Yep.
Got to drive back to Reading. And we're going to watch Elf.
Oh, yes, you said.
Yes, we're going to have some party food.
Mm-hmm.
'Tis the season after all.
Yeah.
And then maybe watch Muppet Christmas Carol tonight.
Nice.
And then there's only one more sleep till Christmas.
Oh, goosebumps.
And
Goosebumps.
Christmas Day tomorrow.
Whereas I drove here today because there's no trains in London today, or this afternoon. So and then as I told you before we went on air, I found out I've got a flat tire. I've never changed one before, so I don't know how I'm getting home. But that's what we're going to figure out. That's what I'm going to figure out as soon as we're off air.
Yep. So there you go. Let us know what your Christmas plans are tomorrow on the WrestleTalk podcast. As is tradition, the WrestleTalk Christmas special will go up. It's an all-star rotating lineup. Ollie, Dave will be on the show. Andy is on the show. Adam Blompier, Laurie Blake, Tempest, editor Terry, social media Abby, and a very special guest for the final portion of the Christmas special.
International guest.
A special international guest. So make sure you tune in for the Christmas special tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching our award season as well. Next week, the award season continues with the worst awards. Oof. So we've got the worst match going out on Boxing Day, the worst pay-per-view going out a couple of days later. Next Tuesday will be the best of WrestleTalk 2022, which I've been informed by editor Vinny is over 5 hours long.
But it's so much best stuff.
So it's going to be between 5 and 6 hours long. So make sure you tune in for, I'm not saying you have to watch all of it, but it certainly helps our watch time. And then we've also got a live episode review of Dynamite next week. And on Saturday, on New Year's Eve, Ollie Davis will be here with Sat Iniangi reviewing SmackDown with that big tag team match.
Yes. Where's Sat today? What's he up to today?
Oh, well, I think he's with his family. I think he's with his little one.
Getting festive. I had the pleasure. I hadn't actually spoken to Sat very much before, but I sat next to him at the WrestleTalk Christmas party. He's a jolly chap.
Oh, isn't he just the best?
He might be Santa Claus. You've never seen him in the same place.
That's true.
And it's Christmas Eve and he can't be here. I'm just saying.
I think we should be putting him on the side of Coca-Cola buses.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great Christmas and a happy holidays. Sorry, I should do the proper outro. I've been Luke Owen, DAD, your Jam That Champion and Quizzlemania Champion. That has been the voice of British Wrestling, Dave Bradshaw. Jam That Jam.